Hello everyone, I'm Bhavita and I welcome you all to this interesting session on CouchDB. Before we get started on what exactly CouchDB is, let's look into the agenda for today. So here, firstly, we're going to start off the session by understanding why we should use CouchDB and then go ahead and understand what exactly will perform some CRUD operations using CouchDB. But before we get started, make sure you subscribe to Edureka YouTube channel and hit the notification bell to never miss an update. Also, if you're interested in online training certification, do check out the link given in the description box below. Now let's get started. Having said that, let's begin with today's session. So basically, why exactly do you think we need CouchDB? Now, traditional database systems have existed for many years. We've all known that for a number of years. And they have a familiar structure and expected methods of communicating, inserting, and even extracting information. Although complex to condense into a simple statement, most database systems rely on the creation of a specific structure, be it organized collectively into a record of data also. So, the drawback or something that puts us in a bad mood with traditional database is that you need to have queries to retrieve data. Now, your queries should look as big as the data is. Now, in order to avoid these, our NoSQL databases comes into picture, and hence our CouchDB. Apache CouchDB is different and one of a new breed of databases that relies on a different approach to the database structure. Methods of storing information and methods for retrieving it is major operation of our CouchDB. Now, there are many reasons why this is new breed of database systems, but the first thing that we need to know is there is a huge amount of motivation in developing this database. With that, let's go ahead and look at some of the features of our CouchDB. First being easy. Now, when I mean easy for replication purposes. As I've already approached, it is extremely easy when you have to retrieve and store data. On that note, we jump into the next feature, which is couch replication. Now here in CouchDB replication, it is one of the best features, I might say, which resembles synchronization of data across multiple servers and devices via bidirectional replication. This means this replication enables enterprises to maximize systems availability and reduce data recovery times. Now, geolocate data closet to end users is one of the main uses using this couch replication. So why don't you want to pick CouchDB now? The next thing is CouchDB views. Well, this feature means that CouchDB uses views as the primary tool for running queries and creating reports from stored document files. Now, views allow you to filter documents to find information which is relevant to a particular database process. This information can basically then be mapped according to your preferences and extracted in a specific order. The next thing is RESTful API. Well, HTTP API is one of the main features when it comes to any database when we are talking about databases. With that said, CouchDB uses a RESTful API to access the data from anywhere with full CRUD, meaning your create, read, update, and delete operations with high flexibility. Now, this is very simple. And it is also effective, which means this is a means of database connectivity, which makes CouchDB very flexible, fast, powerful to use while remaining highly accessible. Now, some of the more features which will add on to our CouchDB is extreme compatibility, effective document storage because of our JSON format. Now, we'll get into it when we go ahead in our session today. It is also built offline. Isn't that cool? Moving ahead, we have advantages of CouchDB. The first being document model. Now here in document model, it is very easy to serialize or your numbering system. Because it uses JSON format, each and every record will have ID for every record that you are entering. That is because of our CouchDB. Now you'll understand this when we speak about our demonstration. When we install and we perform our CRUD operations, you'll see this ID that we are talking about. So with serialization of objects, hence our deserialization comes into picture, which becomes very easy. The next thing is no read locks. So as we've already know, in most of the relational databases where data is stored in tables, if you ever need to update or modify table, the row of a data being changed becomes locked to other users until the modification request is processed. This can create accessibility issues for clients and overall bottlenecks in your data management processes. So if you ever need to update or modify a table, this CouchDB does not lock it. You will still be able to access the record. Another advantage is that it is an open source. Now, in the definition of CouchDB, you will encounter this, and there you might understand why exactly is Couchbase open source a great advantage to use CouchDB. The next thing is scalable. Something that I should have probably mentioned in the features why you exactly should use CouchDB is scalability. Basically, the architectural design of CouchDB makes it extremely adaptable when partitioning databases and scaling data onto multiple nodes. Now, CouchDB supports both horizontally partitioning and replication to create an easily managed solution for balancing both read and write loads during a database deployment. With that said, let's jump ahead and understand what exactly is CouchDB. We've already established some of the points until now, so it should be easier for us to understand what is CouchDB. By definition, CouchDB or Apache CouchDB is an open source document-oriented NoSQL database which allows you to run a single logical database server on any number of servers or your virtual machines. Now, CouchDB uses views as primary tool for running queries and creating reports from stored document files. Another great feature of CouchDB is that the availability of Apache MapReduce to create powerful indexes that easily locate documents based on any value that lives in them. With that said, let's move on and understand some of the history of CouchDB. Basically, CouchDB was first introduced in 2005, but later it was picked up by Apache Software Foundation. It picked up as a project and introduced to the world in 2008. And it also uses a schema-free data model. As the definitions went on, you must already have established that NoSQL, meaning you don't have to have any schema. CouchDB is a document storage NoSQL database. So basically, when you go back to your installing CouchDB involves just a documentation. Give an HTTP link in your browser. It will open and redirect into your CouchDB. The next couple of informations are that it is highly flexible document-based structure, and so you no need to worry about your structure of data. Now, when it comes to databases, your most bothered thing is that if this will handle structured data or unstructured data. Well, thanks to CouchDB, it can handle both structured and unstructured data. And even if your data is unstructured, do not bother because it will handle it as flexible as it handles structured data. Now, CouchDB facilitates user with powerful data mapping, and it allows querying, combining, and filtering the information. With that, let's move on and understand some of the architectural concepts and see how CouchDB works. Here in my architecture, the first thing that's grabbing my attention is CouchDB engine. Basically, CouchDB engine is based on binary tree and init. Data is accessed by keys or key ranges which map directly to underlying B-tree operations. It is the core of the system which manages to store internal data, documents, and views. The next thing that is grabbing my attention is HTTP request. It is used to create indices and extract data from documents. It is written in JavaScript that allows creating ad hoc views that are made of map-reduced jobs. Now, I've spoken about map-reduced jobs already. The next thing is document. As you can see, there are many documents for each of the replica database. What is replica database? While it is used for replicating data to local or remote database and synchronizing design documents. Document, as the name suggests, it stores large amount of data. With that, let's move on and see the syntax for CouchDB. As I've already mentioned, CouchDB as such, in order to be created, needs a HTTP link. Considering this HTTP link and putting this in your browser, you can actually give a database name. This will create your database. The next thing is to add records into your database. Now, of course, this might seem a little complicated when you look at the bare screen, but going ahead, we have installation and CRUD operations. Here, you'll understand the creation, syntax, and operations of each of your CouchDB. So without further ado, let's move on and install our CouchDB. So Apache CouchDB is an open source document-oriented non-SQL or NoSQL database, as we've already discussed. So here we have to know that CouchDB is a document-based application, which means if you have a document for it to operate, then it will be stable and it is ready to operate. So without further ado, let's get ahead and see how we can install CouchDB. Now, firstly, to install CouchDB, I just say install, and then once you are in your Apache official website for CouchDB, just hit on download. Here, when you hit on download, it will suggest which operating system you have to download for. Since we are doing it for Windows, I'm just going to say Windows. It will not directly straight ahead take you to download, but instead it will redirect you into a page. It is a partner page which is known as Neighborhood Software, and here you can go ahead and download, and once you download, you will have a file that's been downloaded here. The next step is to just hit on the downloaded file, and once you do that, it will ask a pop-up message if you want to make any changes to your system. Just say run anyway. And once you do that, there'll be a bunch of permissions that you'll have to accept in order to install CouchDB into your Windows operating system. It will ask for installation, give on permission, and then you can install your application. But in my case here, since I've already installed CouchDB application in my system, it will ask for this kind of message. We'll just fix this real quick. Let's just cancel. And once you hit on finish, you will have to see CouchDB installed. Now, how do you check that? Well, there's a command that you have to enter into your browser in order to check if you have installed your CouchDB in your system. Now here, I'm just going to say localhost 5984 and utils. Just give a slash and hit enter. This will take you to a project Foxton. Now, this is our official login page for our CouchDB. Now, if you have landed in this page, it means your CouchDB is successfully installed into your system. Now, if you have not actually installed your CouchDB in your system and it is not ready to run, it means that this page will not be seen. So make sure you have installed it successfully, and to make sure that it is installed successfully, you just have to accept all the commands and make it up and running just by setting this up. Now, once you hit on this command in your browser, this login page should come. Now here, just a simple username. I'm just going to say user, and password is also going to be user. You can say whatever you want. Once you log in, it will take to your home page or wherever all your databases have been created. Now, as you can see, I have pre-created customers database. Let's not do anything with that. Now, in order for us to understand the CRUD operations, let's go ahead and see how we can perform these operations using our CouchDB database. So next step is to understand our CRUD operations and how we create our CRUD operations in CouchDB. So let's go ahead and see that. Let's go back to our database. Now here in my database, the first step is to understand how we create any particular database in my CouchDB. Here in my project, I am just going to create a database. It's just one click of button. I'm just going to say student. Now student is going to be my database. Non-partition, you can also go ahead and select for partition. It's going to take a couple of subjective opinions that you'll have to consider here. Now, in order to read about partition, you can go ahead and see what this is. It will create a partition key and a doc key. Now, I'm just going to say non-partition for creation purposes here. And make sure you create a proper database name. If you have landed here, I'm sure you will know the basics of database. Do not use uppercase student. In that case, if you try to create, it's going to say you will always have to use lowercase characters. So I'm just gonna go ahead and fix that. Students create. Now students database have been created. The next step is to add documents to it, which means in our language to add columns and hence add data into that columns. Now to all of us who know traditional databases, we understand that these non-SQL databases or no SQL databases like CouchDB, MongoDB does not involve tables. Instead, they involve something called as JSON, and all your data has been stored in JSON format. Now we've already approached that concept there. So next step is to create our documents which will hold our table data. Basically, it means it will hold our table data. In each of the document will have document ID. This is disabled at the moment because this student database does not have any document ID. The first step of our CRUD is create, which is to insert our data. So let's go ahead and do that. Now, as soon as you say create, an auto-generated ID will pop up here. Now, for the ones who have already known MongoDB, this is very familiar to us, as ID is auto-generated. Now, for the ones who don't know MongoDB, well, this is like our primary key in our table. Now, let's go ahead and create our data. So, I'm going to say first name. Make sure you give the right syntax, comma separated values, and email. Now, I have inserted my values. Just hit on create document. As you can see, if you say table, it will appear in the form of table format, metadata in the form of metadata, which obviously you wouldn't understand. JSON, it will consider in the JSON format. Now, you can also hit JSON here. It will redirect you into another tab which will hold your data that you just created. Now you can also notice there is REV value that has been added in order to hold our records. Now this will be unique for each and every record that we add into our table. Now let's go ahead and see how we can actually update our record that we just add. That is U of our CRUD operations. Now I'm going to go back to my databases. As you can see in my database, there is one particular document. Now this doc, as I mentioned earlier, is the number of records that you're adding into your database. As there are no records in my customer database, it says 0. While in my student database, there is one record, it says 1. Now, in order to perform any kind of actions, you can also replicate it. Replicate from another document. I'm just going to go to my database. When I go here, it will give me an option to edit. How do you do that? Select on the record that you just created. Hit on the record that you just created. If you hit on the ID, since you already created this record, it will redirect you into the JSON format of the record. Or rather, it will redirect you into the JSON format of this record where you can basically edit your record. Now, instead of first name ABC, I'm just going to go ahead and say XYZ, which means I have updated my record. Here, I can save the changes and my updated record is being shown here. It is reflected here. You can also view the reflection here in my table and so in my metadata where it is showed in the key value pair and again in my JSON format here. Now with that, we have finished our edit, insert. The next thing is to read and delete. Well, in order to read our record, we have already covered, which is you can read in the table format, metadata format, or even JSON format. Now, in order to make it more visibly delete, let's go ahead and add some more records so that we can view or read in a more appropriate manner. Creating a document here to the same database. I'm just going to give first name and email ID. Creating a document, another record has been added. Like I said, you can read the document in the form of table, metadata, and JSON. Again, in JSON format, the records have been added one after the another. You can see there is a key value added along with it. Now, value contains this particular ID. So the next operation is to delete our record. You can go ahead in your table and see that all your records have been present here. Now, in order to delete, there is a simple delete button here which will delete your document, and hence this record will be deleted. Deleting the document, you'll have only one record left in your table, and so in your metadata, so in your JSON. This way, we have completed our CRUD operations using CouchDB. Now, as you saw, CouchDB is a very simple NoSQL database that you can use in your applications. It does not involve any specific operations that you have to hand type. Everything is just given in a tip of your thumb just by a click of a button. Now, that was it for my session today. And I hope you understood everything about CouchDB that you need to start off to understand and to work with CouchDB. Now, hoping that you enjoyed today's session, I wish you all the best and happy learning.
I hope you have enjoyed listening to this video. Please be kind enough to like it, and you can comment any of your doubts and queries, and we will reply them at the earliest. Do look out for more videos in our playlist and subscribe to Edureka channel to learn more. Happy learning!